Hello to all you dads out there and everybody that's supporting the Daddy Loves You podcast. We've got a new guest tonight, Jacob Lutz, a good friend of mine that I've known for a little bit now. Jacob's got some wild stuff to tell us about his life and some things that we can relate to. And, we want to remind everybody that this episode and all of our proceedings are not only for fathers' rights, but for equal shared parenting. We're out here fighting for everybody's kids, mine, his, your all's. The kids are what's most important. We want to make sure that the kids get a relationship with both of their parents equally as they deserve. All right, Jacob, thank you for joining us, sir. I appreciate you coming on. And I want you to go ahead and start telling us your story.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. When you said that you did this podcast and everything, I did kind of feel alone, like you've said, that most people do. So it was really nice to actually hear and meet someone who's doing something like this for everybody. So, again, thank you for having me on and giving me a chance to just tell my story. I really care about this subject a lot, not only because of, I'm going through something with my kids, but also because I actually came from like a broken family too, with, my father and my mother uh, splitting up whenever I was five. They, you know, different states trying to move back and forth. My mom had primary custody. My dad saw us on the week on the summers. Um, there's a point where we lived in Georgia. He lived up in Connecticut, so I could only see him for the summers. And I used to think in my mind as a kid, that was going through this. Why can't my parents get along? Why can't I would love to have them at my birthday party or something like that, both of them. you know. And that was just thoughts that I kind of had when I was a kid. And so, I can only imagine what these other fathers and everything that are going through right now. The other fathers that follow the channel, of what their kids are going through, what they're thinking of. Especially some fathers have it worse than others, where they're kind of not able to see their kids or anything. So I can only imagine the psychological turmoil that goes on in the kid's mind. Just asking questions, like, oh, does my dad love me or something like that because he's not here anymore. And it's in a kid's mind is so fragile that they can take something and not understand the complexity of the situation, and take it so painful that a base moderation of, oh, this person's not physically here, so they don't love me. Um, and it got to a point um where it turned out to be about 10 years old. My mother actually had an argument with my father. And my mother actually decided at that point that she kind of wanted to, in my head, uh, I don't want to say sabotage or anything like that, but there were some things that happened where I felt like I could not see my father um, for a good 5 years, and I really thought my dad just didn't love me or anything like that. Um, and I'm not going to get into the details or specifics about it, just because I have a decent relationship with my mother now. Um, because I've kind of tried to forgive and forget. But I would talk to my dad about those times, those 5 years, whenever I was 10 to 15. And those were some of the times that kids need their parents most. All the way up until that 5 to 10 mark, 10 to 15 mark, everything that those are the times that kids think the world is scary.
Mm.
They need guidance, not only from a positive mother figure, but also from a positive father figure. Um, and it can be very, like I said, or it can be very confusing to your child. Um, and it's one of those things that, it's one of the biggest messages that I've tried to always remember and tried to always push out there is, you know, no matter what, the kid, your child needs to know that you love them no matter what, whether that's sending a letter, sending something. And I know a lot of people are restricted from that. Um, but it really is kind of unfair that I feel in a lot of states, it does kind of favor more toward the mother aspect rather than the father aspect.
Mm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I went into the military. I was in there for 9 years. After I dealt with my whole not seeing my dad thing. Some certain issues came up. So at 15, I moved in when my dad kind of created a bond with him because at first I hated him. I'm not gonna lie. Psychologically, I thought my father hated me from the age of 10 to 15 because that's all I knew. And so, man, I really did. Like from the bottom of my soul, I hated my father at that point. And me and him talked. Uh, and he just finally asked me, he's like, "What did I do?" And I told him, I said, "For 5 years, you were absent. For 5 years, I didn't see any." Well, I come to find out that, he did try keeping contact, whether it be phone calls, letters, cards, something like that. But, uh, I never received any as a child or anything that there was things that happened that they got sent back to my father. So he brought a suitcase out and dropped it down and said, you take your time, come talk to me when you're ready. So here I am, 15 years old, thinking my father hates me and drops this suitcase at my feet. Okay. Um, I just moved in with him, because like I said, something happened and I had to move in with my dad at 15 years old after thinking 5 years he didn't love me, anything like that. That's where a lot of the issues came. And he drops his suitcase at my feet after I confront him about it. And I open it up and it's birthday cards, it's phone records, it's, you know, uh, like cards, letters that he wrote and everything where it was just sent back. And I sat there and cried. I was mad. I was angry. And that was like a real good driving factor for me of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a good husband. I wanted to be a good father, right? I wanted to be a present father. Good driving factor for me. So fast forward about 5, 6 years, I go into the military. I meet my first wife. Okay. Um, we're together for 9 years. Had two beautiful kids. One daughter, one son. Um, like I said, we're together for 9 years, and you know, um, like a lot of males out there and everything that I let I was in the military, so work was a lot of my life, you know, and so I in my head, hey, that's how I'm providing for my family. I'm home every night, but that's how I'm providing for them is I'm putting food on the table, I'm providing them shelter. Uh, well, that wasn't good enough, and me and her, we tried promising that, hey, no matter what happens between us, it's gonna it's gonna stay between us. Like kids aren't gonna be affected. It doesn't involve the kids. It's us. And that was good for a while. And then I'd see them every weekend, stuff like that. And then fast forward probably about 6 months of me being gone. I brought my daughter and son out for dinner one night. It was a Saturday that it was my Saturday. So I brought them out to dinner, and I had my girlfriend at the time. We were together for a couple months now. She was with me, and I decided, I just wanted to have dinner together. Uh, so when that happened, that's when things changed. She started blocking my phone calls, not letting me talk to the kids, saying, "Hey, I can only call during these times. After this time, she's at work or trying to put the kids to bed." This, that, the other. Made it basically where I could only call the kids 15, 20 minutes on my lunch break at work. Um, and then it slowly started fading more and more away from that. And I was able to see my kids October 12th of 2022 um, for my daughter's birthday. It was a supervised visit, not even at their house. I had to go to one of her friends' house, my ex-wife's friend's house, so I could see my kids. Um, and I haven't seen them since. Uh, she up and I had to call a welfare check on them to see where they may have gone. And cop went over there one time. He told me the kids were fine. The kids were great. And then I called it again about a year ago. It was probably about February 17th, I think it was. Cop goes over there for a welfare check, and he's like, "Dude, there's no one here. There's no one at all. House is looks like it's under construction." So I didn't even know where my kids were. I've been trying to find them ever since. I think might have found roughly where they are. So I'm trying to take the next steps into to getting them because, like I said, all those thought processes I had when I was a kid, um, I can only imagine that's what you know my daughter and my son are going through right now is they feel that abandonment. They feel that I left them, and they don't understand. And because like when I saw my daughter on October 12th, it really hurt me because before I left, she hugged me and she said, "Daddy, why won't you come home?" And it's like, how am I supposed to tell her, mommy won't let me come home? How am I supposed to tell her, well, I don't live there anymore? So I just have to tell her, it's complicated and daddy can't come home right now. It killed me because I couldn't tell her it, and I don't know what she's being told.
Right. Well,
You
a
know,
good a good way to phrase that, and I think this is a good time for me to speak about it, so everybody can kind of know, is to tell them that it's not. You don't have to blame anybody else, but you can say that it's not your choice. And say, "This isn't my choice. I would be here with you if I was allowed to."
mm-hmm.
You don't have to say who or what's causing it or anything like that, but and say, that I know that this isn't your choice too, that, I would be here with you every single moment if I could. And someday we're going to make that happen. To
Yeah,
stay strong, and I love you, and this will never, my love for you will never change, and all that stuff. Kind of, tell them not necessarily that you're pointing blame on someone else, but it's not in your control. You get what I mean?
I can understand that.
Yeah.
That's a very good way of
It's a
putting it.
little bit easier for them to understand that than just saying, one day you'll understand, or, that I know it's confusing right now and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
because it just kind of it's a continuation. So it kind of
Yeah,
gives them something to rest on, to think, okay, well, he's not here, but he would be if he could be, that it's
yeah,
not his choice. And same thing for moms too, because this happens to moms too. It's a whole lot less,
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But, any parent that's going through this, the best thing to do is to try and help them understand by just confirming their feelings that you care.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. And, that's a good driving factor too. Is always I know it's hard to always think of yourself and think of, well, wow, I miss my kids, and a lot of men get into that real dark place because they can't see their kids, right? But when you start having those thoughts and you start doing those negative thoughts, just like I have, you have to think, if you're thinking this way, what do you think your your kids are thinking, and what do you think the kids are going through? We understand as adults and everything complex emotions, but our children don't know how to process it, so they're misguided, they're vulnerable, and they're in pain.
Oh yeah. Well, especially when the other parent that they're with is alienating that parent on purpose. You know what I mean? It's like where those letters and stuff were sent back for you.
Yeah.
Even if you couldn't see your dad, that still would have been a bright light in that relationship for you.
Hmm.
So it makes it even worse that most likely when they try to talk to that parent about what's really going on, that parent's lying. Even if they don't say something specific about that person, because there can be alienation by proxy. That means that they
Yeah.
don't take, they don't take responsibility for it themselves, or show the responsibility is on the other parent or something like that. But things like preventing the letters or telling everybody else at daycare that's why the daycare people tell them that and all that stuff and everything. So when those kids come to their parent, the only one that they have for emotional support, they're not receiving emotional support even from them. So it's even worse. They're not getting it from you because you can't be around, but they're also not getting it from the only parent that's there to be responsible for them.
Yeah, and that really affects the child negatively, because the three main things a child needs when they're growing up through these emotions, especially very difficult times, is nurturing, guidance, and some kind of support, whether it be a physical support and guiding them into understanding life, or anything. And if you're missing one of those three things, you you can seriously confuse a child where they don't understand what's going on, and it mentally festers inside of them, where when they do grow up, it's one of those things, like, they've thought about this for the longest time, and whenever the truth finally comes out, it's their entire world has just been flipped upside down.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
like when it just like whenever I was 15, and for 5 years I thought my father never loved me, anything like that. But then whenever it was said, hey, I need to come up and live with you, without a hesitation, he said, sure, come on up. And it was very confusing to me. I'm like, if this man doesn't love me, why is he accepting so much for me to come up there so quickly? And so I can only imagine the thought process of this child, anyone's child, thinks in their head that they may have, they're not loved as much or something like that. And then whenever it finally comes, where, say, you guys finally get to court, and the judge finally gives you full custody, primary custody, partial custody, any kind of custody. Now, whenever you're coming and being there with that child alone, that child is at first going to have resentment, and trying to overcome that is either going to do one of two things. It's going to drive a wedge between any relationship you try, or it's going to potentially mentally break the child, because everything they knew was a lie. And the person that they thought was nurturing and caring for them Now it gets flipped. So the mother was the nurturing and caring one, and now it's like, okay, well, no, now it's flipped to the other side, and now the child has trust issues.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and that's even the worst part about it is that this becomes lifelong. They have no
Yeah,
understanding of what a healthy relationship is. They won't trust anybody that says they love them for the rest of their lives.
they're going to have that insecurity about it
Yeah,
of double questioning everything that
that's
someone tells them.
that's exactly right. Well, and see, this is another crazy thing is that the reason this becomes what they call a generational sin or circular reasoning is that because you went through this as a child, now that's normal in your mind, and that's what gives you comfort, as messed up as that is. That's why a lot of people say they had a bad mom, well, and then they say, well, you end up dating your mom. Well, it's not that you want that, it's that that's what's normal for you. That's what feels safe, is because
Mm-hmm.
you're used to that. So your dad was an alcoholic and you get married to an alcoholic as a woman because it's not that you want to go through that, it's just what your safe space is. So your
Yeah,
safe
you know how
space
to deal with
becomes
it.
danger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And and that's such a good point too that you made there. Like it becomes, it's not just a lot of, so how do I put this? When I was in the military and everything, talking about PTSD, a lot of people thought that, hey, post traumatic stress. So they thought deployments, stuff like that. A lot of people don't realize that kids can have PTSD from these traumatic stress incidences,
Hmm.
and it goes with them, like you said, through life. It's not just a, well, it happened, you'll get over it, and this, that, the other. It grows into stigmas. One of the biggest stigmas that I think is wrong is people turn around and say, "Oh, you're, say, a little bit of a wild girl, right?" They'll turn around and say, "Oh, you have daddy issues, don't you?"
Hmm.
Right? It's a stigma, okay? But even though it's a stigma, there's a little bit of truth in it, because it's like, okay, so if you really peel back the layers of that onion, okay, of that life, you will find a base area that you will find that it might not have been necessarily super bad as a traumatic experience, but it might have been something very simple as a divorce caused a father or something to be a little bit less present, and causes that psychological thought process
Right.
throughout life.
Right. It becomes what's called a core value, and it's in
Yeah.
your subconscious. Yeah.
Mhm. And it's something that you can't really change unless you go to, honestly, years of therapy.
Yeah. Which is extremely hard. And none of us want to go through it, but facing your trauma is probably the best thing you can do as an adult, honestly.
But um, the first step is knowing the trauma you're going through and recognizing that trauma.
Right.
And a lot of people just don't understand that. It takes so much for someone to recognize that trauma and to actually, how do I put it? To recognize it and to actually address it.
Right. That's the worst part is we can all figure it out, but going through and addressing it, because you have to relive those traumas to be able to turn them around, to understand them.
Absolutely.
And that I can tell you from experience is an absolutely terrible thing, but it is worth it. And so many people aren't willing to do that at all, you know.
Yeah. And it's very hard for the children. It's very hard. Honestly, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's hard for everyone, whether
It
it's the
is.
children, the father, even, you know, I'm not gonna say I'm pro left, pro right, anything like that. I'm not gonna say I'm pro father, pro mother, anything like that. I am for what's right for the kid. I'm for what's right for the children. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter who's alienated left or right. It should be equal all the way down. It should never affect the kids. Listen, if someone has a problem with their significant other, right, go to counseling, figure it out. Do not let it affect the child, because now you are not just dealing with your life, but you are also supposed to be the guidance, and you are supposed to be the mentor for this child's life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and what you're saying is that it's both parents' responsibility to do things right. Instead of just
Yeah,
saying it's one, it's the other, this person's doing wrong, that person's doing wrong. Because of what's happening, we are both doing wrong because we're not
yeah,
actively fixing this.
yes. And a lot of people will probably hate me for this comment, but it's, in all seriousness, I don't care if, say, the man cheated on the woman or the woman cheated on the man, and that's what caused the breakup or anything like that. Guess what? You may hate each other. That may be the reason y'all broke up. But at the end of the day, okay, hey, listen, I understand you got your problems. I got my problems. We understand that we don't work, but we need to be at least civil for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
They have to know that even if everything doesn't go right in life, that there are solutions and people can be good to each other
That's right.
just on principle.
Well, and that's what the commitment is supposed to be in marriage. That's why they say better or for worse,
Mm-hmm.
sickness or in health. Because if you think that you're going to marry somebody that's going to be the exact same person for the next 60 years, go laugh at yourself. You're a clown. Because everybody goes through seasons and everybody changes, whether they're with you or not. And you've made a commitment not only to yourself, to your significant other, to children, but in my world, to God.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you stick around and you take care of that person and you understand that things change and you're there and your support. And in the end, you're there for your children.
Yeah.
You don't, even if someone cheats, you don't give up because that's giving up on your kids. People make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes, people go through things. That's why I'm an advocate for staying committed for the rest of your life, unless there's physical abuse. If there's physical abuse and you all can't get past it, you can't do the right, the person can't do the right thing, stuff like that. Absolutely, that's an understanding of why you shouldn't be together anymore.
Yeah.
But you can
But
still work together to try and make things right for the kids.
exactly.
Otherwise, there is no sin that you can commit that should justify the separation of a family.
I
That's
can
how I
understand.
feel. That's how I grew up. That's how I was taught. That's how the church teaches. You know what I
Same.
mean?
And I'm one of those people that I will try and try and try and try, and I will keep going. Let's just say I'm not the one that wanted to end the first
Right.
marriage.
Right. Well, and
You
most
know,
men will. Most men will sacrifice everything for that to continue.
yeah,
I've
because
said a
that's how
million
my
times, I would do anything to wake up to be with my kids every day.
absolutely, and that was the biggest thing that even I was saying is I would literally I would take a hit to the face every single day if it meant that every single day I would be able to tuck my kids in to
Dude, that
bed,
would be
and
easy. Give it to
and
me
they would
twice.
understand, yeah, and they would understand that, hey, they ever need me or anything like that, they know where to find me,
Yeah. They get to
you know.
wake up and if they wake up in the middle of the night and they're afraid and they want their dad, you're right there
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day. And if they wake up and they want their mom, she's right there every
Mhm.
day.
You know.
And the thing is that really messes me up the most about all this, Jacob, is that the men and women that are alienating the kids from the other parent
Hmm.
will eventually be hated by the child. They're destroying not only the relationship between the parent and the young child now, but they're destroying the relationship between themselves and their child later. Because
Yeah.
they grow up, they become adults, just like you. You
Hmm.
found out the truth and you had anger towards your mother. Now
Yeah,
you're responsible and you're an adult and you've done the right thing and you're trying to clear all that stuff up and have a good relationship with both of them. But, you know,
but there's still pain there.
absolutely. And there always will be. It'll
Yeah.
never be the same ever.
Mm-mm. And because of that, there are repercussions of how I view relationships, how I view, you know, I'm not saying like I view all women or anything like that, but like there's certain triggers for me and everything that I look forward or look out for. And it really puts like a psychological block on things.
Oh, yeah.
And circling back to the kids on it and everything that it's like just imagine, right? Even say it's a 6 month court case, right? Where no contact, anything like that. Just imagine the impact 6 months can do for a child who doesn't understand the concept of time. Look at as weird as this is about to say, look at a dog, right? A dog loves you unconditionally, no matter what. All right. Whether you leave for 5 minutes or you leave for 5 hours, it is the most ecstatic and happy to see you walk back through that, right? But when you leave, you've probably seen the little cameras of dogs after you leave and everything. They panic. They don't
Hmm.
know what's going on, right? Now, think of that same concept. And the only reason they have that concept is because they don't understand the concept of time. So think of that same concept in a child's mind, that they don't understand that concept of time. So whether it's 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 6 months, or 10 years, right? Until they learn that concept of time, to them, it's an eternity. They don't know if you're coming back.
Wow. That was an epiphany for me because I'd never thought about that way. That that's an absolute. You're right. Because their mind is so much more developed, of course, than a dog. So it's even more racing thoughts and anxiety. And I never thought about it like that before, man. That makes things even worse. That's a good point to bring up to not just me, but our viewers. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had never thought about that. What a concept. And you're probably right. I would say, for sure that you're right.
I mean, because time is something that's learned. We learn to
Right.
tell time, and the only reason that we understand it is because we have a clock and we have hours in the day. But
Right.
a child, before they understand that, they just know they wake up, they know they go to sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's a construct, really. It's something to, but time is something that we've developed,
Mm-hmm.
that's to keep track of things. And to be honest, a lot of people don't know that it wasn't something that was actually kept very well up until Einstein. Einstein developed what's called the time zones and how to understand that transition of time around the world. Up until then, which wasn't that long ago, people
No.
didn't really understand. They only understood day and night. We had
Well,
a
I mean, they
generality
kind of
of time,
understood.
but
They kind of
not,
understood
but within your
years.
area. Well, we had an idea of time around us, but we didn't have
Yeah,
an idea of time for the person that lives 3 hours to the west of us.
yeah. They only understood time by the position of the sun.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so going on that thought process and everything that it's like I said, when if it's a 6 month court case where you're not allowed to see your kids or anything like that, you know what I guess you could say construct do they have to keep that thought process that X amount of time has gone by? All they know is that you're there, you're a person, and they get overwhelmed whenever they see you again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. A lot of people, I'll say this, a lot of people don't know right now. I'm going through a custody battle again. Jacob knows. And I've got to see my kids once in almost 5 months now. And at Christmas, when I saw them, they were so excited to see me that it was hard for me to be able to give them both the attention that they need because they're at an age now where they want it separately, not just together. So the whole time I was battling, going back and forth. This kid wants me, this kid wants me, this kid wants me, this kid wants me, and it was within each other, and neither one of them ever felt like I think that they got enough time, and like that's all they think about. They're not thinking about, well, we're only here for this short amount of time, we need to share. They just want to regain that time lost
Yeah.
and as rapidly as they can. So I can only imagine what's going through their mind otherwise. And
Now let me ask you something on that, if you don't mind me asking. I don't mean to interrupt you.
okay,
Now, let me touch base on that Christmas thing real quick. So you were there with Christmas, like you said, it was hard for you to, I guess you could say, focus and divvy up your time between the two because they were so excited, right?
right,
So let me ask you this: in the back of your mind, you were thinking, you were so overjoyed that you got to see them, but you were also probably very sad also because you weren't sure when the next time you'd be able to see them too, huh?
yeah,
So in the back of your mind, whether you might want to realize this or not, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up. It's not to make you feel bad or anything like that, but a lot of people don't realize, kids are so much more in tune with their emotions. They don't understand what they are, but they're in tune with other people's emotions and energy exchange. So you being sad, you're trying to force that happiness to be there for them, but they can pick up that the entire time you are very depressed that entire time because in the back of your mind, whether you wanted to show it or not, you knew that this time was going to end. You
yeah,
knew at some point Christmas Day was going to end and you would have to leave that house without those children, and you weren't sure when the next time you were going to see them. And kids pick up on that. And a lot of people don't realize that that's something that really affects kids too, is that they can pick up on that energy exchange.
yeah.
And that might be why they kept trying to pull you more to themselves, is because they could feel that you were sad and they were trying to make you happy.
Ooh, yeah, you could be right. And we'll see. My kids, I've spent the last few years trying to teach them and done quite a good job emotional intelligence, how to understand their emotions, how to portray their emotions to other people and stuff like that in the right way. So you're probably exactly right. They probably did know. And I never thought about that either. You probably did are right because my both of my kids, when they see that I'm upset or something, they want to hug and be around and care and all that stuff, just as I give them the same love when they are. They reciprocate those things. So
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about that either. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. Shit.
Psychology classes.
Right. Right. Well, and something else that I want to bring up that I just did a lot of research on, they're now saying that, for a long time they thought ADHD was something that could be hereditary, but they're now
Yes.
saying that it actually is driven by high anxiety as a child, that your child's mind doesn't get to develop in a way of imagination anymore because they're constantly battling things that they shouldn't have to even think about because the adults are relating them or pulling them into it.
Oh.
So that's causing ADHD because their mind is in a stress, flight, or flight all the time. So they
So,
constantly is fueled by adrenaline and cortisol as it
okay.
develops. So for the rest of their life, they're all the time because that's how their brain developed.
You know what? And uh there's another hidden factor in that, if you really want to think about. So ADHD, I grew up with ADHD. Okay. So a lot of people, they keep their mind racing and stuff like that to repress a memory, to not think about something.
Hmm.
So not only are these kids now doing that, the reason they develop a lifelong coping mechanism that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with their problems, they procrastinate it, push it off, put it in the back of their mind, repress it, and just okay, it's life, move on to the next thing
Yeah.
instead of actually dealing with it, so that whenever they become 32 years old, 35 years old, or something like that, and they hit a wall in life where, guess what? They have to stop and think. All those memories come out, and now they have to deal with it, and they don't know how.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Well, and see, we've got multiple generations of it now. So, as an adult, like you and I that both have ADHD, we never had enough knowledge to be able to understand it ourselves. And now we're finally getting to a point where we kind of understand it, but we have to help our kids understand it at their age. That way they can get it and do right with it when they get to our age. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because really a lot of that also is um when we were hunter gatherers and we had to live a life where we feared dying all the time, we had to be high energy. We had to think on our feet and be situationally aware all the time. You're hunting, you don't want to get killed by not only an animal, but say another caveman and things like this and stuff like that. You're always driven to be able to feed yourself and feed your family and do those things constantly and stuff. That was a benefit to have that, right? But
Yeah.
and that stress, well, created that as a benefit. But now kids are going through all this stress and fighting and misunderstanding and all this stuff and everything between their parents, and they don't have any place to put that because they don't have to go out and get food.
No.
They don't have to provide for their family at a young age. They don't have, well, that's why, like, for my son and my daughter both, they're exceptional problem solvers. So one of the things that I help them with their mind to set them at ease is, you know, basics, puzzles and stuff like that. But even any basic mechanical stuff like that, everything. My son, dude, he can literally look at something on a box without instructions and put it together. He's 7. He can take 76 pieces and put it together in 15 minutes with just looking at a picture. But he knows every little detail, where that wheel goes and where this item fits in here and all this stuff and everything, because I've been able to take those things that can become challenging and give him an outlet for him to
Yeah.
do those things. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think that's another big focus that parents need to have, even if they're not together, is to help their kids understand who they are as a child and help them develop into a productive person. Because everybody is so focused on being on their phones instead of
Yes.
being a parent. Or
Absolutely.
or my kids drive me crazy. Give them the tablet. I need a break. Well, that time comes when you get to go to bed. That's when your
Yes.
break is,
Yes.
instead of
Absolutely. I
pawning things
100%.
off.
Yes. I 100% agree with that. There's a lot of parents out there that will sit there and they will, like you said, they don't want to deal with, they don't want to deal with, I guess you could say, the daily stresses of parenthood.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, a lot of that stems from the fact that they didn't have parents that helped them when they were children.
yes, absolutely.
The beginning
It's a
of
little
the
bit
end of
different.
the well, the beginning of the end of the nuclear family came from our parents, not us.
Yes. And it's hard to justify, how do I put it? It's hard to justify the age we live in of, oh, don't just tell your child to go play on the tablet or something like that. Because the age we're in now, they also kind of got that, again, like you said, it's that generational thing. So they, our parents kind of pushed off on other things like, hey, go outside and play. Don't be in the house and stuff like that. So they're, we got pushed off in a very healthy way where we went and played sports and stuff like that. We occupied our minds. Nowadays, a lot of the areas that we're at, we push, a lot of people will push children off on electronics because of they can't go outside. They're afraid to go outside. There's sickos out there that we we want to try and protect our kids.
Yes.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's kind of a hard it's kind of a hard in my opinion it's a hard way of justifying or alienating parents of saying, hey, here, play with your tablet or something like that. When our generation did it too, it's just in a different sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like speak only when you're spoken to. You know, kid
Yes.
kids are to be seen, not heard. My dad, he got that a lot when he was a kid, And my dad got both of his parents were gone at a young age. So his grandparents, who we find out recently in the last few years, weren't even related to him, as wild as that is. That they were, they grew up in the Depression era. So he even got it worse than we did because not only did they not have anything to provide him with, but their whole idea of parenting was even worse to pushing it off, like you said. And even if you're in the house, like, no, you don't bother
Mm-hmm.
us. We're doing our thing. This is adult time. There was
Mm-hmm.
no nurturing or anything like that because they had to survive when they were kids.
But and here's a weird thought process that I had, right? So yeah, we kind of got pushed outside and everything that, but if you look at the families back in the 50s and the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, parents stayed together for their kids,
Commitment.
and it was that thought process that it is all about the children, and no one, I guess you could say, no one thought about themselves in that situation. Back then it was about the kids, it was about the children, it was about what their well-being, instead of just what makes you feel better.
Yep.
So where, I guess, from 70s 80s to now, where where did the thought process go of being more for the child rather than being more for your own thought processes?
You want to hear my theory?
Absolutely.
The creation of the self-help book and the destruction of organized religion. So when self-help books came out, and still even to this day, they all tell you, don't worry about other people, only do what's best for you all the time. That's what a lot of these
Okay.
self-help books are. They are
Elaborate on self help, because
so
self help
self
can be financially, mentally. Elaborate on that for me.
so self-help these days basically shows you how to take care of yourself in every way and not provide for others, not care for others and stuff like that. So you
Okay.
come first no matter what in every situation.
Okay.
And most of them, there's still plenty of books out there that still teach you empathy and stuff like that and everything. A lot of people don't even know the difference between sympathy and empathy anymore.
Correct.
Words don't seem to matter to people. They create their own definitions and stuff instead of using the dictionary and all this stuff. So a lot of self-help books are driven to make you a singular instead of realizing that the world needs to be played in a way of community.
All right.
So they choose themselves over their children. They choose themselves over their husband or wife. They choose themselves even over their friends. It's just like when you work with somebody that tells you all these things, but secretly they're doing a lot of bad stuff behind your back, right? It's the same kind of
Yes.
thing. That instead of that person, adults used to work for a company and say, well, we're doing what's best for the company, but really
Yes.
everybody's doing what's best for them, and it's preventing the company from growing into what it could be because everybody's really cutting everybody off at every corner instead of helping each other.
Sounds
Just
like you have
like
a little bit of a animosity there.
I mean, not anymore. That's normal these days. Well, I don't mean normal. I mean common. There's quite a bit of difference. I know what you're talking about, but I expected that. I expected that stuff from the beginning. Um, but it goes in everything. It used to be uh, a child is raised by a village. It takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
You could depend on your neighbors being there and doing the right thing. You can let your kids run around the neighborhood and have friends in your own neighborhood because you knew that everybody was looking out for everybody's children instead of now you got to not even let your kids play in the front yard while you're sitting out there because you're afraid somebody's going to snatch your kid because nobody's even paying attention.
See,
So,
I'm glad you brought that up because so my grandparents actually lived on a road, backwoods in Pennsylvania, and I always thought of that too because by the time someone would enter on that road, by the time they got to the end of it, people already were wondering whose the car was, where it was going. Everyone already was like, all the parents were already outside,
mhm.
and everyone knew exactly where kids were. So I'm really glad you brought that up because even I remember, and I was talking about this today actually. Even I remember, you know, a time when I was a kid, you know, 12, 13, 14 years old. I was riding my bicycle, 20 miles
Oh yeah,
somewhere.
across town. Yeah.
Yeah, a whole nother town, a whole nother city, everything that. And the only rule I ever had was, hey, be in by these street lights coming on, right? But my parents didn't have to worry. They weren't
Mhm.
scared or anything like that. They only got worried whenever I didn't come home after the lights came.
Right.
Now people lose their kids for 5 minutes or don't see their kids for 5 minutes and they freak out.
Yeah.
And I think, believe it or not, it really has something to do also with why some of these fathers and everything that get alienated because they get a bad rap of single fathers not being able to be as nurturing or as caring or as good of a caretaker for children as a single father than say women do or something like that. So a lot of men start to get that thought process and get alienated. Um,
Well, and the
and
thing
people will look
is
at a
that
single father differently.
Well, the thing is, statistics, if anybody actually pays attention to them, which they don't because they fueled by what they search on YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff, and everything that you look at is what you get fed. But statistics show that single mother homes breed more men that commit suicide, that go to prison, that become bad single fathers, that are just overall bad people. But a single father home has the ability to present as a man and a woman because when a man loses that woman, they find the way of being nurturing for the child and being loving for the child. But when a woman loses the man, she searches for that strength in another man instead of providing it for her on her own.
And that's not always, like you said,
Yeah,
statistically.
right. But it's like
Statistically.
80, 87% or something like that
Mm-hmm.
is what it is. Well, and going back to the whole thing about where you could ride across town and so we used the
Yeah.
same thing, same thing. It was like that for me growing up, but it goes back to also the consensus that we spoke about. So two parents should stay together for their kids, but the consensus when we were young is that everybody watches out for for your children. That's why you could do that because
Mm-hmm.
you knew that there was somebody on that street or somebody in that town that was watching every time.
Well, well,
And
because of the thought process of this, men and women stayed together, and so who did men and women befriend? Other couples,
right.
right? And it's sad because nowadays the divorce rate is so high that a man and a woman may turn around and have friends, but as soon as the man and woman disperse, now it's like a custody battle over friends. Well, this
Yeah.
friend doesn't want to get involved with this friend because they know this one and they know that one. So they kind of just disperse and be like, well, we're just gonna fall out of touch because we don't want to get in the middle of it. And so now you just lost a even when you need that support system most, and the child needs that support system most, because hey, I tell you what, some of my friends, my kids call them aunt and uncle,
Yeah.
right? So if I split and stuff like that, well, guess what? Are they still aunt and uncle? Or are they going to not want to really deal with it? And so now, not only has the parent lost a support system because the friends don't want to take sides, the child has also lost another positive relationship in their
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And again, what it comes down to is selfishness.
It really is. It is it. And as sad as it is, people in the moment don't see the long-term effects. They
Oh
see the
yeah.
immediate, and they see they see the immediate effects. They don't look like I always tell, my uh significant other or anything like that. They only look at the 10-yard line. They don't look at the 50-yard line or the 300-yard target. They're only focused on that, what's right in front of them at that 10 or 15 yards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. The way my dad put it a million times growing up is you pick your battles.
Yeah.
Is this little thing worth fighting over?
Mm-hmm.
Really? No, it's not because it's something that's circumstantial. It's not something, but so many people are taking things and relating that to everything. So they fight only, about little things and they fight about huge things
Well, and it's because they can't get their pride out of their way and just say, you know what, I'm sorry.
because they're selfish.
Yep. And in
Yeah.
turn, them being selfish, they stop looking at helping the child and they're only looking at helping them. Because if people truly took a step back and really thought about it, people always make that joke, oh, what would Jesus do, right? All
Yeah.
right. I want people to really take a step back and really think about this option before they do anything in this process. All dads out there, all the females that are coming in here and listening and everything, that if you ever have someone going through this, the one thing I want you to always just have them stop and think about is this: how will this negatively impact my kid 5 years down the road?
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at, well, how is this going to make me feel now? Say, how is this going to affect my kid down the road? And if it's anything other than positive, find a different avenue, find
Right.
a different route.
Because there's
Yeah.
absolutely a different way,
And it's going
and
to be hard. It's going to be hard.
well, the thing
Nothing
that
in life worth it is easy.
one of the things that I like to tell a lot of people that come to me and ask for help and stuff, because I get a lot of people that just write me to chat about what's going on or understand the laws of the state and stuff like that and everything, is that when you become a parent, selfish is no longer a word. You replace that word with sacrifice because you do everything to sacrifice for your children.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing. And another thing that I've always preached, like kind of what you were saying, is in a different context. When you go and you think of something and you want to do something and you don't, when you want to understand the effects and stuff like that, think about yourself, in your opinion, the other person's opinion, and then a third party perspective. And then you understand from there. Because when you look at it from someone else that has nothing to do with it, you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
see that this is kind of crazy. What the
Yeah.
hell is going on there? You know, because everybody's perspective is different. You know what I mean? It's like your mom was doing that thing, and your perspective of your dad was terrible. But your dad's perspective was that he just wanted to be with his son. So he kept all
Yeah.
of these things and thought to himself, I have hope that eventually my son will come around and I'll be able to give him this. And that came around. You know what I mean?
And it
Actually,
was hard.
a good friend of mine, Mark Ludwig, he, ever since he lost his son, which he's had him back for quite some time now, he writes him a letter every single day, telling him about the day or how he felt about him that day and stuff like that in a notebook. And has since he was very young, I think within his first year. And I'm pretty sure, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure his son is 13 now.
Mhm.
And he keeps all of that in safe deposit boxes. And when he gets old enough, he's going to give them all to his son. So he knew it was on his mind every single day, that no one can change that perspective that he had of his son every day, because here's the truth of it. Pretty
Yeah.
crazy. That's commitment. That's amazing. It's amazing. It takes a
I
lot
mean,
of strength to keep that up.
oh, absolutely. But you find strength in your children and the love you have for
That's exactly right. That's
them,
exactly right. Because that's what this is all about, right? It's all
about
about the
our kids,
kids. That's it.
about ensuring that they grow and develop into, functional human beings in
Yeah.
society,
Well,
and at most importantly are happy.
right. Well, what's the number one goal as a parent should be, in my mind, is that you develop this child to be better than you. You want your
Oh,
kid
absolutely.
to be better than you. You want to take all your life experiences and pour them into your child so they become a better person, better than you did, have better than you did, do better in life
Absolutely.
than you did.
But too many times people will sometimes either get, how do I put this? There's two opposites that can happen with this, though, that I've noticed. And I'm guilty of it. I think every parent is guilty. You have to find a good balance between nurturing and creating that adult and wanting to spoil them. You want to give them everything. You want to give them all the answers and stuff, but sometimes you just have to let them learn the answers.
Well, especially
And
boys.
yeah, and that boils all the way down to our main topic of fathers and stuff like that. There are certain lessons that fathers teach both God, their sons and their daughters, that a mother just can't teach.
Mm-hmm.
Just like there are things that a mother can teach that a father can't. And denying a child any of those, um, I guess you could say, nurturing lessons is just hindering the ability of the child to grow into the best version of them that they could possibly be.
Right. Right. That's exactly
So,
right. Well, and it also takes away their ability to make decisions on their own later in life too. You know,
yes.
you've got this proper guidance, and then you also have a parent that takes responsibility for their actions. It is
Mm-hmm.
big, and then letting your kids run and do crazy shit that you're scared is going to hurt them is actually huge. You need to let them do that, because
Yeah.
they'll hold themselves back, because their mind, like when kids get older, we go through the same thing now. When kids get older, that voice in your mind, that's your parents a
Yeah.
lot of the times. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how many times we go, well, my parent said this, or my parent did that, or they did it, like we develop from that.
Yeah.
So, like, if your parents constantly like, oh wait, you might get hurt, you might not do that, don't do this because you could cut your
Okay.
finger off or whatever.
So let me ask you a good question on that, since you brought it up. All right, we're talking about, they need to learn these mistakes and everything like that, right?
Yeah.
So here's my thought process on that, of, some mothers or even some fathers, when they alienate um the other parent,
Hmm.
right? A lot of times I hear the excuse, well, because the father did wrong to them or the mother did wrong to the father, they try to say, oh, well, I need you to have a more positive role model in your life or something like that, right? So they start thinking to themselves, I'm protecting my child by not letting them see that other parent because I want to shield them from, say, the mistakes that maybe they see. Okay, for instance, my ex-wife, um, would say that I cared more about work than I did my family. So she felt that I was partially neglectful because I would always arrive home later at night because I was in the military. So she used that as an excuse, saying, "Oh, well, you know, I don't have enough time to deal with my kids or anything like that." So, my question for you on this: at what point does nurturing and letting some child learn a lesson, at what point does it become toxic to the child?
I think that's a very good question. And my answer would be it depends on what level of consciousness that child has achieved. So
Okay.
so we have four levels of consciousness, and most people never even get to the fourth level, which is concrete
Are you talking about
consciousness.
consciousness or mature?
Consciousness and maturity are hand in hand.
Okay.
So with consciousness comes understanding, and with understanding comes maturity. So,
Absolutely.
we reach our first level of consciousness when we are starting to speak. And then we can
Okay.
reach another level when we are starting to understand and form sentences. Okay. And
Okay.
then we reach another level, excuse me, when we can understand people's body language and emotions. And then
All right.
then your next level of consciousness is when you understand your own body language, your own emotions, what's causing you to drive you to be who you are.
So when you become self-aware.
Correct. That's concrete consciousness. That's your last level. And I'd say probably 85% of people never make it there anymore. So I think that when a child, and these things are different time frames. So it could be,
Mhm.
between 1 and 3 and 7 and 15, things like that and everything.
Some
It's
don't make
all
it to 32.
right. A lot of it is different. I mean, on how they're guided by their parents and stuff like that. But like, say for my son, he's 7. I think he's already at his third level of consciousness.
Okay.
It can happen rapidly. So you have to understand where your child's level of understanding of the world is before
Hmm.
you can, reveal certain secrets or emotions and
Hmm.
so like when I tell my child this, do they have the ability to grasp this and understand it in the way that I'm trying to say it? So think about the fact that how many people that you talk to every day that you want to express something to, but they just don't get it at all. They don't
Yeah.
understand it because they've not reached a level of consciousness that gives them the ability to understand it beyond their own simple view of life, right? So it's the
Yeah.
same thing with your kids. So if your kid is at an age and you can see it in their mind, some people call it the light in their eyes,
Hmm.
that they've understood things at a different level, then it's okay to express things again in a certain manner. So one of the things that I teach my children, and I try to teach everybody, is fucking especially adults these days, is that words all have meanings. And when you overuse a word, say like love, then it diminishes the meaning of that word, right? So when a kid understands the power of language,
Hmm.
they can understand what that truly means instead of just having context and inflection and all that stuff and everything.
So
So
on
you
that,
have
are you saying that you can tell your kid that you love them too much?
no, not necessarily, but what you can when you say that, do you tell your kid, well, I love this, I love that, I love this, I love that, I love this,
Okay,
and
I
this,
understand.
and it's things that are physical, like I love steak so much, and you tell them every day, I love steak so much, I love steak so much.
Oh
In
no,
their
I do love
mind,
steak.
I do too. That's my favorite. Steak and potatoes is my fucking thing. I eat that shit like 3 days a week. But to their brain, when it's not at a certain level of consciousness that they don't understand the separation of the term through context, then
Hmm.
all they see is they're being compared to steak.
Ah,
You know
got
what
you.
I'm saying? So it
Yes.
diminishes what love means to them. And that's just one word. So the answer for me to wrap it up would be you have to understand and take the time to know your own child to know when you can share and when not to share.
Yeah.
And
And that
so
in
many
that all.
people don't know their own fucking kid.
Yeah.
So just don't share. Like,
But that also, I think that also goes back to the whole point of that fourth level of consciousness where everyone needs to really do a little bit of soul searching, look inside themselves,
right.
realize their own flaws, and understand that, hey, maybe this is something I need to get better, and not involve my child, not involve the other person. How can it affect them?
Exactly. And that's why we have so many parents that continuously do the wrong thing and bring their kids into things at the wrong point because they've never reached the level of consciousness of self-awareness. And that's
And
why
that
I
makes it
think,
harder for everybody.
right. And that, well, and it's circular reasoning, right? It's like
Yeah.
somebody says, well, I might be doing the same thing my mom did, but I turned out okay. Well, no, obviously you didn't.
Yeah. Now
And
you're
if you
trying
were
to justify me.
self-aware, right, if you were self-aware, you would know that. So I think
Yeah.
that everybody should go through therapy, even if you've had a perfect life, because
There's
trauma,
something there.
trauma and fear is only what that person's worst event ever was. So say you have been in military, so you've been through war times. That's the worst, some of the worst shit you've ever had to experience, right?
Yeah.
But say a person, the worst thing that's ever happened to them is they got a flat tire.
I envy them.
What my point is that the fear might be the same, but they just don't understand it because they've never had something beyond it.
Yeah. They don't have anything to compare it to other than that.
Exactly. But if you go and you talk to a therapist, that person can help you understand the rest of the world. And that's what helps you become self-aware is knowing what's happening in the world. And
Yeah.
I think that a majority of people don't have that. And that's another reason why we don't have a community that we can
Yeah.
trust.
And if everyone becomes more self aware, that will make the world a better place for other people too.
Exactly right. Because like if you're a Christian, and everybody, I'm happy with whatever religion you are. I think in the end, we're probably all worshiping the same God, anyways, if you're monotheistic. But it's God first, others second, then yourself. And if you live your life that way, it will come back to you in blessings because you're taking care of other people. And when you're taking care of those people, they will take care of you.
I mean, even in the thought process of karma,
Right.
do good unto
Exactly.
others and it will come back to you twofold. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
all religions basically just say, be right to thy other man,
Right.
you know,
Well, and let's put it in
to
even
thy neighbor.
in a new age term, okay? It's like when you feel these certain vibrations and you give those vibrations off. So when you live in a world of plenty, you receive plenty.
Yes,
So it goes the same thing. We can all say it a million different ways. But when it comes down to it, we all need to help each other. And by
absolutely.
helping our kids together, we are helping each other. And hopefully, we will be raising a new generation that understands that we need to bring back community. We need to bring back family. We need to do
Absolutely.
the right thing as much as we can. We all make mistakes. That doesn't make us a mistake. We were born in sin. That happens. But realizing what you're doing wrong and changing those things about yourself is very important because
Yeah,
everybody else in the world is relying on you to do so.
it all boils down to we're adults. Let's be adults
Right.
and keep our children out of it.
Yeah. Well, and as an adult, you can't continue to live your life as a victim. Things happen to you, you become victimized, but you don't live in that.
Yeah. If you get knocked
So
off the horse, you don't stay in the dirt.
right, you can't blame other people for what's happened in your life for the rest of your life. You can't blame your parents for who you are now. You're an adult. Fix yourself.
Take
Right.
responsibility.
Right. Exactly. I think that's actually probably a good time for us to end because we're starting to rant a little bit for sure. But I appreciate you coming on, Jacob. We had a great time. We
Absolutely.
actually had
I,
more conversation together than my other episodes, so that was pretty nice. I like that.
I
Um,
like the conversation back and forth too. It really opens up different perspectives.
Yeah, you helped me see two different things that I'd never thought of before, which will help me parent better for sure in the future. I'd like to make an announcement that I do have Daddy Loves You merchandise now. So if anybody wants to order anything to help support the fund for Daddies Need Lawyers, that's where all the money will be going to. If you all don't know, it's your first time listening, we're trying to start up a fund to help provide really moms and dads both the money that they need to be able to have a lawyer to fight for their kids. It's called Daddies Need Lawyers because the high percentage of these people are fathers. But we will be giving money to anybody that we can to help. We will not be giving money directly to the person. We'll be giving the money directly to their lawyer. So that the funds are going to the right place and allocation and stuff like that. So if y'all could reach out and buy some merchandise, that would be fantastic. I really appreciate it. I'm also now part of Americans for Equal Shared Parenting, and I want you all to go out and provide them for support. These people are the ones that are changing the laws in all our states to make everything equal for all parents and do the right things. One more thing that you can do is you can go out and you can buy this book, Make a Difference by Mark Ludwig. He's the president for Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. And that's going to teach you how to be a better person overall, but it's also going to give us the ability to go out and fight as a lobbyist, to go to your people that are in control of the laws in your state and everything, give you a better understanding of what we can change to help our kids. So I greatly appreciate it if you go out and you support Mark and everybody else that's involved in this. Get involved, join the cause, be part of the fight, and please come out and reach out to me, talk to me anytime about anything that you need to, and please become part of the show. We need the support by showing everybody that we are not alone.
Aaron, how do people reach out to you? Do you have a link that's here?
That's a good point. So I have a Facebook. The Facebook is under my name, Aaron Doing. There's not a separate page for Daddy Loves You yet. There will be, but you can reach out to me on YouTube, which is called Daddy Loves You, the podcast, and Spotify, which is also called Daddy Loves You, the podcast. There's a couple of things out there that are going to come up when you put Daddy Loves You. Some of them are things that maybe some of you all want to see, but that's not what we're doing here. So put in Daddy Loves You, the podcast, and it will come up with us. And of course, the logo of the man with the mustache with his baby. That's what you need to be looking for.
Please tell me you had a mustache like that.
No, but my dad did. So it just as a representation of masculinity, I added the mustache. I look terrible. I look terrible with a mustache. It's not good. Facial hair is just weird on me.
It's all right. I look weird bald. So.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you, and I will let you know when everything launches, so you can
absolutely, man. I'd love to
see
be back on the
yourself
show
and hear yourself and feel how odd that is.
I know. I'd love to be back on the show sometime, man. Anytime you want to talk about it, or you have any controversial issues or anything that we can talk about.
All right, baby. I'll see you next time.
All right, absolutely.